Okay. Yes, I'm gonna do the same. Right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna configure a project from the beginning. So this could serve as a guide for you. And maybe the best example could be the one we have from an area in Israel. Is Netanya. So this is an area where we worked some time ago. I'm gonna show you like a typical process on how to configure everything, and later when I finish, and I will show you what I did for neighborhood 28 and 29 of Raham. I think Rahat. Yeah, the area. So yeah. So basically what something important when you work with Star is having the right file organization. So imagine you have your folders like this. I'm gonna first close this. You have your folder system like this, and you imagine here, well, I have several folders. This is for the training of you, but you can have a folder called projects and have different cities or even areas of sub areas of several cities. So if I open, for example, here, demo Netanya, I have a folder called input. The idea and a good practice in every time you work with Star is having a folder with the input data already prepared for Star. So for example, here I have my aerial line, I have my antennas. I'm gonna configure an FTT fiber to the building, fiber to the premise, and fiber to the antenna project. And I have all my input layers already here. Another reason for having an organization like this is because you can replicate the same structure for different folders. So you wouldn't need to every time you run a project to configure the system. You could use the same organization and use the same rules for every project. So now I open Star here. And this is like a blank page, as I mentioned, right? You have here the infrastructure, you have here the architecture. If you have a look here on the project, I can open other tabs like cable system. So you see that's it's basically empty. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna configure from the beginning my project. So let's say I have here in this project. I'm gonna call this project name Netanya, right? And I'm gonna, well, select the application. So I'm gonna have an architecture with 3 applications. So I can call this GPON, right? GPON. Another application called point-to-point. And another application called FTTA.
Fiber to the
antenna.
Antenna, okay.
Right. So yeah, fiber. So yeah, in some cases you can calculate the fiber. Most of the time those are direct fibers from the OLT to the antenna. So that reach the top of a building or whatever an antenna is. Then I can select here the spatial the reference system. So for example, if I select here Israel, that could be right IL. And well, design area, I can say call again Netanya, right? The spatial reference system, I can select here Israeli, right? So you can select in your system, because I don't think it's by default in my system because I worked beforehand with your project. But you can select EPSG 2039 and you will have this projection. And currency, the same, right? So you choose ILS and you'll have the new shekel, right? And you have the meter. So this is basically how you do it. one important thing is that I'm gonna save my project, and I'm gonna save it in this at this height. So I'm gonna save it here, and I want my project to read the data that is located in this input folder. It's better to have this organization. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select this path, copy, and here I'm gonna save it directly in File, Save As, and I select my path here. And I'm gonna save it here. A very important thing I'm gonna show you. There are two ways, two types of projects that you can save in Star. You have the Star project and the Star configuration file. When you generally, a good practice is to save as a configuration file, because here is where you save the rules. The rules that of all your network. When you save the project as a Star project, is you save also the calculation. You save the calculation. It's like a local copy, and it's reference to the location in the folder where you are. I'm gonna explain you this further in further detail. So I'm gonna save it as a config file, right? Configuration file. And well, you see it's here, and now it appears here, my configuration file, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good. Now I'm gonna import my data. So I'm gonna start with the infrastructure. In the infrastructure, I'm gonna add a pathway support. And in this pathway support, I'm gonna have basically, well, let's start with two infrastructures, roads and aerial. So I'm gonna call this one roads. So if I check here, I can import from my add source, and I have this this window, and I'm gonna select my input from here, right? So I'm gonna select roads. So shapefile. I only selected shapefiles, although I need to have all the other layers available. Open. And you see that I have uploaded this. So, well, originally these were in this projection, but well, doesn't matter. When I export the data, it will be in the Israeli system.
Okay.
And I'm gonna, for example, imagine that I have this road and I need to have an idea of a reference of a name. So here in this, my original layer had these attributes. So I'm gonna save name and the external ID. So this is OSM ID. So what else I'm gonna do? This is okay, I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna show it on the map. So I will show you some pre-treatment that is performed by Star, right? So you see, this is my layer. If I go to OpenStreetMap and I put reusable pathways, center and map, I have, well, my connection is very slow, and I don't have this, but I can show you another layers by default. So for example, being aerial, right? And you see that I have this base map.
Oh.
So these are the ones that are by default, being hybrid, roads, Google Maps, all this. But you can also add a base map. For example, if you do this and you have the name and you have the URL of your base database, where whatever you want to upload the map, you can do it using this tool. Okay.
Okay.
So you see here that I have my layer, my input layer, and I have I'm gonna, maybe it's too thick. I'm going to change the symbology, maybe put here 5. right? And here 3. So I think it's better like this. You see that this is the raw layer. If I select roads and select button, you can see that I have one segment. You see that here I have saved the name of this layer,
But
and I have saved the
it's
ID.
check the fonts, they are garbage.
I'm sorry?
And on the name, it's garbage. Hebrew. It doesn't show the Hebrew or Arabic or whatever.
Ah, well, maybe we need to check the input layer QGIS.
Maybe it's French.
No, it's not. Windows.
You are using probably a problematic coding or font coding. I think you need UTF-8 or whatever.
Okay. Well, maybe. Well, you let us know if you see it or if not. Yeah, I think it's the Windows version, perhaps.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that we can check that. I can open a ticket if not. So my colleagues will check it. So you see here, I have, for example, this layer. I have this whole segment. And you see that this whole segment there, it's not divided. If I select this layer, I mean, here I have one point and another point, you see, in the punctual infrastructures.
Yes.
So these are potential connections to some points. However, here there's a direct segment, and there's no way. Imagine if I access this line, there's no way I can cross this street if there is any connection point. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to add a filter, a pretreatment in my data, and I'm gonna add split lines at intersection. So I go here, right? Settings, and I add here preprocessing, split lines at intersections, add. Okay, so I take the parameters by default. You see that now I have more elements, although at source there were 159. So if I have a look at the map and I select again, you see that now I have split in this intersection. Okay, so I can cross now this street. Another thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add another filter. I will split into equal parts to create potential connection points, candidates. So maybe every 20 meters. So this will allow me to connect houses a lot. So you see that now I have this number. And if I have a look here on the map, you see that I have split my segments in my roads in different segments. So this will eventually allow me to connect my houses to the infrastructure.
What's interesting is that I see lines on both sides. Because it's a bidirectional road, so you have two sides of the road. I see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You've seen the center line here. Yeah. Obviously, if you have a more precise database, you can see them on both sides of the road, or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. So what else? Okay, I can also, well, specify here if it's this won't affect much, but this will be reflected in the output, so it could be useful. I can say if it's underground, if it's aerial, or whatever. I'm gonna say it's underground, and to build. So let's say this is new civils, right? So now I'm gonna create another support, and it will be for aerial connection. So I'm gonna add pathway, and I'm gonna look for my data, my layer in the same input folder called I think it's the first one, aerial. right? And well, it's called aerial. Maybe I will delete the shape here. And well, I can do the same. I could import a name. I think that for this layer we use the OSM layer by default. If I want to recreate this layer, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna split it in the intersections and every 42 meters. So let's say I do this intersections. And I'm gonna add every unequal part. So I'm gonna simulate my poles every 42 meters. Right? So I have this, and you see, well, by default, it changes the color. It's blue. So you see it here. If I close the map and open the map again, you will see it in blue. So you see that now I have potential poles. Those are the lines. And every 42 meters, right?
Along the roads.
Yeah, along the roads. So this here I'm simulating my area line.
Okay.
So I mean, this pre-treatment could be done beforehand, or you can use also some tools to directly start. Good. So another thing is that I'm going to check by default. You can well, I'm gonna add not in roads but in aerial. I'm gonna put here, this is aerial type and it's existing. Let's leave it like this. You can add also a cost for this infrastructure. So I'm gonna say that this infrastructure aerial is cheaper than roads. So maybe I'll put 20 shekels per meter. And you can also add a fixed cost that could be eventually an installation cost for installing the segments, or even the poles actually. So equipment, well, this is here is where before we used to configure ducts and microducts. Now there's a special tab where you configure this. Well, this is something you're not gonna use. And in the topology, here's where you define the rules for connecting the different infrastructure. So for example, if you have a transition between roads and aerial, well, you can have these rules, right? So a maximum cost of 1,000 shekel, linear cost 50, and maximum connection distance, so could be 15 by default. So this is important because in some cases, imagine that you're building a new area that goes to the road, and then you find a pole. So you need to define a possible transition between the road and the aerial and the pole to change the infrastructure. If, for example, the distance between a chamber and a pole is further than 15 meters, you won't connect the you won't have this transition. So this is something you need to check also as well.
Okay. And so I define here, I mean, you have civil work, you have the cable cost, you have the cable hanging, you have you know, so what do I define here in terms of pricing?
Okay, what you define here is the cost, the infrastructure cost. So it's the cost per meter and the fixed cost for installation, so to speak. The equipment, the cable, and all that is defined in the cabling tab and also in the equipment database. What you're defining here is the cost for using this infrastructure.
And where do I define the cost of rental of the pathway from Bezek, for example, or from City Hall?
That's not defined in the start. I mean in the configuration of the system. You could extrapolate this from the outputs. It's like an indirect cost, but you don't define it internally in the software.
So my OPEX that I pay rental for the path
Mhm.
It's not handled in any way in Star.
Exactly.
This is just build costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is very important. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So right. So now I have created my aerial infrastructure. Maybe what we can do before is yeah, because we will need it for the cabling and all that. I'm going to create my equipment database.
Mhm.
So to do so, I will do it in two forms. I will import the database by default by star, and also I'm gonna create some equipment myself. So if I go here, project, equipment database, and I'm going to import. So when you install star, you a folder in the documents folder, we call it static star, will have equipment libraries, right? So here you can import by some equipment by default, like generic equipment. So I'm gonna import the splitters, and if you see here in the splitters, I have universal splitter 1 to 28, 1 to 64. If I open, for example, 1 to 32, 132, I have these characteristics. I have the unit price and split ratio, and also the attenuation, right? What about if I want to create my own splitter with my own characteristics, my own price? So I can do it like this. I'm in the well, the splitter tab. I click add, and I'm call it splitter. Well, I have all of them, but I'm gonna create a 1 to 8 splitter. 1 to 8, right? I'm gonna copy this. So this is a manually. I'm gonna put it in description. Manually created. So I'm gonna define a unit price, perhaps 20. 20 shekels. Split ratio, I put here 8. And attenuation, so that would be 1 to 9 dBs, right? So 9 dBs, right? So this is the way you create equipment. So you will see later how I will select in which tab I'll select the splitters. But for the sake of the example, I'm gonna import the rest of the elements that are already available in the library. So I'm gonna import the cabinets. So in the cabinets, you have what characteristics you have? Well, the name, the unit price, and the capacity. So this is the total number of terminations that each cabinet can serve. Maybe we will create more if it's a larger area. Okay, cables. Cable library. And here we define. Let's take this 2F. So diameter, fiber count, tube capacity, and maximum length. So here in what happens, for example, if I have a 144 cable and I have a maximum length of 2000. So if I have a segment with more than 2000, the 2 kilometers, it would place a splice closure by default, right? So I can define the maximum length here. And so yeah, here you have diameter, fiber count, and tube capacity. So right, I have here 12 tubes of 12 fibers for this cable. Closures, I'll do the same. Right. So as I showed in the slides, you have the number of splices and the ports. So something important here is that start is gonna take the ports by it's if the diameter, the cable diameter is larger than the port, if you made a mistake or something in that, it's not gonna take perhaps this right closure, the right closure. So you have to be careful with the diameter you put in the cable. Yeah. So well, we don't use microducts assemblies, but yeah. So I have imported all my equipment, and this is a generic equipment that we'll use when there's no available equipment or it doesn't fulfill the engineering rules, right? So this is created by default. Yeah, so I'm gonna save my project. So it's a config file, yep. And now I'm gonna create my my architecture. So I'm gonna here create a my nodes first. So if I select here OLT, I'm gonna call it level 1, and this is my central office. And I'm gonna import the location of this node. So if I have here central office, so do I have an ID? So I'm gonna import here this this layer, right? Well, there are some if there are attributes that you can that you can input this info here, like the maximum split level for spare fiber link budget and all that. If it's in the attribute, you can import them. So for the moment, it's like free, and it will calculate everything automatically. So right, I have this here, central office, and if I take a look at the map, I'm gonna open it. My central office is here in the center of the area, roughly speaking. So one thing I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna define that my connection has to be underground, right, from my OLT. So I'm gonna build an underground link, so no overhead. Well, obviously that depends on the project. So, but I'm gonna show you how it is. So I can establish here in my topology. I'm gonna unselect this option, right? So I don't want my central office to be connected directly to any pole. So I say my connection is only underground. Something important, you need to make sure that this distance allows you to connect to a point in the infrastructure. If you imagine that you have your OLT and you say my maximum connection distance is 20 meters, but my closest point of the road or potential chamber is 40 meters, it won't be connected. So well, when you run a star, it will tell you that it's not connected. So right, another thing I'm gonna add in my equipment, a cabinet. So maybe this one. So you see that the ones I imported, are in the equipment database. So I'm gonna import it. Okay. And if I have a look at the map again, and in asset connections, so far the potential interconnections that I have between the elements of my network. If I select interconnection, central office, roads, I have 2 possible connections to my network. These are the roads, right? So you see, you have 2 points here, 2 potential chambers.
Stop connection. No.
See here.
הוא אומר, just a minute, Daniel, he's saying, you don't want to have aerial connection from OLT. I want to do OLT to pole underground, and then you go to pole.
כן, אבל למה אריה? אריה זה קונקשן.
לא, אם תסתכל, asset connection, PO to road.
PO to road, כן. שם האופשן, אריה קונקשן.
הוציא, כי הוא לא רוצה, זה OLT, שם הפול, הוא לא רוצה ככה, הוא רוצה מלמטה.
הבנתי.
Let's continue.
Okay. So you see here, when I have asset connection, you see all the possible interconnections between the elements of my network. If I select this OLT to this point, you see I have 1144 meters, right? So that's defined from this parameter that you set up in the topology interconnection.
Yeah,
And Daniel, if we cannot just dig through,
Sorry?
if we do not just dig through, if we need to go, I don't know, to the road and then along the pavement until we reach the manhole, then I have a different length.
Well,
What is the meaning of this length here?
This length is the distance that you allow from the central office to connect to any surrounding infrastructure.
Yes, but if I cannot go in that route when I'm digging, then what's the point?
אני לא מבין את השאלה.
You said 11 meters.
Yeah.
זה הקו הצהוב, זה מרחק, זה 11 מטר. זה מה שם לעמוד הקרוב.
לא, אבל הוא אמר זה המרחק שמותר לך.
לא, מותר עד 20. אם ה-OLT היה מעל 20 מטר, הוא היה אומר אני לא מחבר, כי אתה לא יכול, מעל 40 מטר, הוא לא מחבר.
Yes, but this is just a theoretical distance. It's not a practical distance in the ground.
עוד פעם, אתה יכול להיות שאתה תחפור פה ככה, אבל זה זמי, זה אחר כך. כרגע הוא הולך קו ישר, כי זה הכי קרוב שיש לו.
Well,
the point is, you are showing here a straight line from the OLT to the pole. Let's say that the actual physical infrastructure on site does not allow for direct digging. It has to go, you know, in some sort of an arch or like an L-shaped dig. What do we do then?
you mean like, for example, like this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Personally, I would do the following. Roads. Create points, lines, and polygons. And I would do this.
Make a theoretical road.
But if I may, when you planned it, let's say that you first planned it, okay? And then you did just one straight line. And then afterwards, when we go to the practical point, we will discover that we have to do what you did just now, okay? No, sorry, I will switch to Hebrew for a minute. בתכנון אתה עושה קו, עולה לך סתם שקל, פתאום כשאתה מגיע לפרקטיקה, אתה מגלה שצריך לעשות קווי עיקוף, עולה לך 5 שקלים. אתה רוצה אחר כך לדעת שבין התכנון שלך לפרקטיקה, אתה לא מעדכן פה אחר כך?
לא, מה פתאום, זה כלי תכנון, זה לא כלי הזמי, את יודעת שזה עולה לך יותר, אם את רואה בסייט סרוויי, את רואה שאת לא יכולה ללכת ישר, כבר ככה, כל אחד מתקנת פה ומריצה, זה שינוי קטן פה בכסף.
אבל זה אומר שכל התכנונים פה בגדול, בראש נקי, הם קווים ישרים פשוטים ואין שום...
כן, אבל לא מה, יש תהליך עבודה, there's a process, okay? You start with you know, cost estimation, then you go to high-level design, and then you do site survey, and you do low-level design, it's fine. Okay. I mean, now we have the top level, we have defined the project there. Let's go on.
Okay. So what you can do, if you change the location of an OLT, well, you can start with let's say presuming like point where you might think the OLT is. Maybe in a second version of the project, you could change the location, right? So maybe here in notes, I select central office, and my OLT won't be here, but will be on the other side of the road. You can do this perhaps. You see?
Okay.
And you can also force. This is a good. I can explain you this. Let's say that you go back to this point. Let's say that you cannot connect to these points, but in front of it, and I don't have a point here, so I can take roads, select my segment, split pathways. So I'm gonna put it in front of it, right click, split line. So I created a point. You see now a connection is created.
Mhm.
And I will use set a single interconnection. Or I could delete this possible connection here, right? So I select it and I delete it with the delete button, or use this button here, delete, right?
So the question is, where do I store all this information? In which layer?
What you do is that I will save this config because, well, I'm going into detail design here, but for this manual it as an SD Proj start project, and with my start project I will save this all the manual modifications and calculations made by the software. So the general process would be to configure a set of rules, save it as start configuration file, and this same config file, I can use it for other areas, for different areas with the same engineering rules. And in every area, when I run it, I can save the modifications as an SD Proj, and I'll have my data my data stored.
Can you show me how you close this project and reopen it?
Yeah. So right, I'm gonna close it here. I'm gonna open star. 1 second. Because I have version 5707 by default. So I'm gonna open the one I'm using. Okay, so I double click on star. I have my blank project. So I drag and drop this one here. And now I have my project infrastructure. I have a single node. You see?
Okay, and then show me on the map, please. Yes. Okay, so you did not keep the line that you just drew, the new line. Okay.
Yeah, so here it is. Here it is. This is the one I split, and the one I drew. I mean, the one that was created.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Right. So I'm gonna close this SD Proj, and I go back to my SD config because I want to have my rules, my general rules. Okay. You can also drag and drop this project, this configuration, or the SD Proj. You can drag it to the application,
Okay.
to the icon, and it's opening on the other screen. So if I can. Okay, so right, you see, if I open the configuration file, I'm going to show you on the map, and you'll see that this is a bit different. No, because I didn't say, you see, I didn't save, when I created the OLT, I didn't save it in my configuration file. I saved in the project, but not in the configuration file. So I'm gonna add it again. Central office. So at source, central office. External ID. And equipment. Yes, this one. And topology, I'm going to select this one. The rest is okay. And yeah, I have my central office. Now I'm gonna create another, in this example, I created another node called SC, splice closure. And this was for forcing to use a specific set of cables for the feeder part.
Okay, we're still in the rules, right?
Yeah, config file.
So,
Yep.
so how often do you save this file?
How often?
Yes.
I do it every time I could configure many things, and perhaps every time I finish with a tab. So I'm gonna do all the passive architecture and save it.
Okay, so we cannot put an automatic save like in Microsoft every 10 minutes.
No, you need to save it manually, or could be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So I'm gonna call this one level 2. I'm gonna call it SC splice closure. And I'm gonna say here in the placement, now I'm gonna configure my rules. So I'm gonna put a minimum of 100 premises, maximum of 124. I'm not gonna put any splitter here, but I'm gonna force my feeder cable to go from here to the splice closure. And I want to use it, fill it as much as possible. Something important is that I need to say, if I really want my node to be placed, I need to put here mandatory before an upstream node. If not necessarily all the nodes will be connected directly to this node. I mean, you could have imagine a level 3 node connected directly to the central office if it's closer to the central office. But if you really want to go through the immediate upstream node, you need to select this option. So what else? I'm gonna put here.
Again, I'm trying to understand. I want to put the first splitter inside the CO.
Okay.
So how do I join between them?
Well, you can select a splitter here, dimensioning. Select splitters, and you select the splitter you want to.
I want to
You see, I mean,
I want to do a big cross connect there. What do I do? A big cross connect with one splitters.
Big cross connector central office is at the top.
You select the splitters you want to use in this first level. So 1 to 2, for example.
There's money. The sort of money. Cross connector.
זה סנטרול זה החוק שלנו.
לא.
זה החוק.
בחוק לא צריך קרוס קונקטור ספליטרים.
אני לא אומר ספליטר, אני אומר
לא.
להחליט איזה כבל מתחבר לאיזה כבל.
ספליטר או...
One second, Daniel, sorry, I'm just curious.
ספליטר או פאנלים? רק פאנלים או ספליטר שם?
פאנלים.
פאנלים כן. קרוס קונקטור. אני חושב קרוס קונקטור זה ספליטר.
לא. ספליטר זה ספליטר, קרוס קונקט
פלוס קונקט.
להחליט איזה סיד מתחבר לאיזה כבל בהמשך.
נו, זה בתוכנה צריך להסתכל.
לא, אבל זה קונקטורים.
כן.
אתה מבין, אני מחליט שאני מושך משהו מהכבל שבא משם, מ-28, ודוחף את זה לכבל שהולך לא יודע מה.
נו, טוב, זה בתוכנה שם יש. איפה ככה הולך סיד.
כן, אני מסכים, אבל פיזית, יושב בפופ,
פה בפיזית לא.
בפופ יש לך ג'אמפרים. יש לך פאץ' פאנל, יש לך פאץ' פאנל, אתה מבין ג'אמפרים.
כן, הבנתי. אני לא יודע.
אוקיי,
אוקיי.
let's please continue. We will find the solutions afterwards. How we do it, okay?
למה?
So,
א',
אני צריך לחשוף את כל החומר לפני
אני
שמתחיל
מבינה,
שאלות.
אבל אם יש פה משהו קטן, הוא לא מספיק נהיר, ברור, עדיף עכשיו, שהוא לכאורה קטן, אבל הוא בסוף יהפוך להיות גדול. במיוחד באינטראקציה עם המנהל.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you show us how we put the second layer, the second level of hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I decide that I want the same, both layers to be in the same location, both of them are physically in the same cabinet.
Yes.
Do I need to define it somewhere, or how do I know afterwards that they are in the same location?
A good way to do it is that you don't specify a maximum distance by infrastructure,
Okay.
because
Then it's zero automatically, or what?
yeah, like this.
Okay, so it's zero distance, that means automatically they're in the same location.
Yeah, because if you say, for example, imagine you have the central office here and your second level, you say maximum distance of 2 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
And you have the OLT and you have a group of houses. It will group the houses around 2 kilometers and place your second level node. But if you don't put a limit, it is likely that the software, well, I don't say it's likely, it's the case that the software will place it in the same level as the OLT, because it's cheaper. You place it here and you reach up to whatever you want.
And then let's say the 2 kilometers are suddenly not covering the whole area. What do we do then?
If you put the distance of 2 kilometers, then the second node will, you will have perhaps a first, you might have more second levels than you need, because you could have a first second level covering 2 kilometers closer to the OLT and another one for the other 2 kilometers.
I understand.
So imagine that okay, there are two ways. You can say,
I
well,
will tell you when it is important. It is important for us. Let's say if we don't want the cables to be too thick. Then we would like to have a few locations of S1 splitter.
yeah.
Yeah. So we run with thinner cables. The feeder cable is not so thick, right?
When you mean so thick, what do you mean?
If I have a few locations of S1, and I need to have a feeder cable going through all of them.
Yeah.
This is, let's say, one option. And the second option is that I start my S1s in the POP. Then I don't have the feeder cable. I'm directly distribution cable. And there'll be much more of those, right? There'll be much more cores in there.
Yeah. That means that you don't.
Sometimes we want to limit how thick a cable will become. Let's say we don't want a cable bigger than 48. Okay. So in that case, I will have to go to the architecture. Well, it will be in any case like we have at the bottom, I think.
Well,
We'll have multiple S1s along the way.
yeah, but for limiting the cable, you need to configure it in the cabling tab, maximum 48.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I understand. Then he will calculate the best option. If I can
Yeah.
put an S1 in the main office or not. Okay, understood.
Yeah, that's the cabling dimensioning. The other thing is the premise dimensioning.
Right.
I suspect in the rule that you're saying that maybe it would be the case that you wouldn't put the node as mandatory. So maybe the houses that are further from the OLT will create the nodes, right? But the ones that are closer to the central office will be connected directly to the central office. If they don't surpass this less than well, the maximum number of premises.
Okay.
So yeah, we need to maybe, yeah, we need to test it. Maybe it's not even a single run, maybe it's 2 run, maybe you will affect some clusters to a specific node as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's proceed at the moment. There's no point to time here.
Right. So I'm gonna define this one, this SC. Yeah, I named it SC. So minimum 100, maximum 1024, and 1024 because I want it to be really almost full as much as possible. Military and upstream, so it will place a closure very close to the OLT. If not, it's the same place.
Apartments? Well, I'm sorry, what is this?
Termination.
The placement, what is that?
Okay, so this is where you're going to place I'm going to place my level 2 node. What parameters I define to calculate them automatically. So if it's going to place as an splice closure specifically for this level with a minimum of 100, maximum 1024. So the distance is not important. So I'm gonna group my area with 1024 premise maximum.
But why, I'm sorry, but why do I need 1024?
Because this is arbitrary, this is my project.
מספר. הוא צריך לחבר 1024 בתים. בסוף העניין הוא LT 1, 16 פורטים,
This is an
1024.
example.
No, but you're not talking about OLT, you're talking about split S1. So what are we defining here? We're not defining the size of a cluster, right?
I am defining here the size of my level 2 cluster. So I can have several clusters. Each one will have maximum 1024 meters. Termination, sorry.
Right. That means it could be a few OLT ports.
This is level 2. I have.
Right. So what do I define there? How many?
This is my central office.
Yes.
And I am defining here groups of another node called SC, which has maximum 1024. Another, this is SC1. This is SC2, maximum 1024. Another here, SC3, maximum 1024. And they will all be connected to the central office. Maybe like this. Maybe like this. Or perhaps this way.
So these are no longer GPON connections. These are active connections.
No, this I don't define here if I want to use the splitters or not. I want to define here the size, the number of terminations my SC, my closures in this node will serve.
Right.
I define the number of premises, and then I can define the number of splitters per cluster.
I understand. Okay, so you're talking about the closure, the size of the closure.
Yeah.
Okay, and the closure can have, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 S1 splitters.
Yeah, but in my example, the one I'm recreating here, I do this because I'm not gonna place a splitter here. I just want to limit the number of for my feeder cable. I'm gonna limit the number of premises, so I would use specifically the right number of cables. You will see it when I check the outputs.
Okay.
So, another
Good. So, דימה, this is בכניסה לשכונה, כשאנחנו שמים closure גדול, שיש בתוכו כמה אסטרדים,
כן, כן, זה
זהו אומר שכונה, זה שכונה.
זה בצורה 512,
בסדר, אני לא ידעתי את זה, שאלתי. Okay, so we in our terminology, this is called the neighborhood.
okay.
Okay, so how do you call this? I'm sorry. This is your level 2 cluster, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So in my level 3, here is where I'm gonna put my first splitting level. So I'm gonna call this FCP, right? And for my FCP, I'm gonna place a splitter, right? So first of all, in dimensioning, I'm gonna put here, you see that I have 3 applications.
Yes.
That the ones I define in my project properties. So in my GPON, I'm gonna select, let's say 1 to 8, right? In my point-to-point, I don't select any splitter because it's a point-to-point connection. Same for fiber to the antenna.
Right.
So this is when I mentioned that this is like a blank page or a blank support. So the user defines itself the architecture. So for the GPON, I use this. So right now, for the placement, what I'm gonna do is my FCP clusters. So let's say I use here 220 minimum, maximum 256.
You have 1 0 extra.
Oh, sorry. Yep, thanks. Okay, and let's put it fill it as much as possible, 256. I'm gonna say this is mandatory, so I want my first cluster, my first splitting level before after a splice closure necessarily, and I can use this, but I rather select these options for the last node so you can understand how this works. So that's fine. Now I'm gonna place my second splitting level. So this is my FDT. So for my FDT, I'm going to put a splitter, another 1 to 8. So it could be a 1 to 64 architecture in total for my GPON. And right, so and I
have a question. I'm sorry. Back to the FCP, right?
Yep.
The FCP you wrote maximum 256.
Yeah.
But why 256? What's the reason behind it?
It's an example.
Because if I do an S1 splitter there, I wanted this stage already to limit this to 64.
No, Daniel, I'll tell you why we are being, we don't understand, because we are working in a certain mathematic notion that says that when we have, we're doing a 1 to 64 split per GPON port, and suddenly you are telling me 256 max on a second splitter, which is way higher than what we thought should be. So I understand that you are giving an example, but if you try to, if you are doing an 8x8 splitting process, okay?
Yeah.
So SC is 1 to 8, that's fine. Now I have the FCP, which will be also 1 to 8. And it will 1 to 8 will mean that the FCP will connect only 8 subscribers on this splitter, not 256.
Yeah, but the first splitting level, myself, I am putting it in level 3, not in level 2.
We understand that.
Hang on. So what you're saying, level 2 is just feeder, no splitting?
Exactly.
And level 3 is S1, which is 1 to 8. And then you have level 3, level, let's say, 6, which will be the FCP, which has to be 1 to 8, only up to 64.
Level 10.
No, it's not level 10. 10 is the slide.
Level 2 can, אבל זה FCP זה 10.
נכון, so the question is, so we would like to work with FCP 64.
You can define whatever you want. The FCP 64, why? Why, Alex?
Because that's an S1.
S1 does not provide you, this is the physical closure. In the physical closure,
No, the physical closure is SC.
no,
Yes.
no. SC is level 2, FCP is level 3. SC does not have any splitter.
level 2.
The closure.
אופיס, צנטרל אופיס, זה level 1, SC2, FCP2.
The pop
Notice
closure.
No. We have a gap in understanding.
Okay.
What's the difference between the SC and FCP, and why do you put them in two different levels?
Okay. Maybe the thing is that I'm trying to recreate a specific example in Netanya that was for a dense area, and we define another intermediate level called SC because we wanted to force a specific type of cable from the feeder to this level, right? Because in the original, if we run from the central office to the potential level 2, right?
Yes.
The feeder cables were a bit different, right? Not as we wanted. So for this particular demo, I added an intermediate closure to force a specific cable in the underground infrastructure, a maximum size, and from the closure, another cable. This cable was because I wanted for this particular project to have two different cables in the underground and aerial. That if I remember well, this is how it was. However, the architecture is I have my central office, I have my first splitter, and here is my second splitter.
Okay, so the first splitter is 1 to 8 on each and every fiber.
Yeah.
Now, when you're saying that the FCP is up to 1024 connections, it means that you have up to 128 houses with up to 8 connections.
What I'm saying is that I have this closure. If I say here, I have a maximum of 256 FCPs, right?
You said 1024 nodes.
That's level
Yes,
2.
okay.
Terminations.
Termination, sorry.
That's level 2.
Yeah, that's level 2. So I understand what you were trying, I think I understand what you were trying to do. You were trying to connect neighborhoods, right, along the way in the city.
Yes.
And you wanted the feeder cable, sorry, to run between the neighborhoods. There is no splitting there. There is only splicing.
Yes,
Right?
in this project, I only have splice. I don't have splice here. Yeah.
So this is you're creating a ring or a metro
No.
network.
No.
This is an IBC point-to-point partner point-to-point.
Okay, it doesn't matter. But the idea is,
Yeah.
but in SC there is no splitters.
No.
Right. And you start your splitters structure only in level 3.
Yes.
Okay, now on level 3, that is okay. The question is, what size do you give to the cluster? The cluster can be 64, it can be, I don't know, 32, it can be maximum 128.
Okay. Yeah. If that's the case, you can put maximum 128 here.
But did you ever do 128 there?
I think I put in my example 256.
No, but in real life, did anyone design with 128?
Yes. I don't know if in Israel, but in the UK they have this. And in other countries, they can have 128, they can have 256, 500 multiples of 8 could be the double 504. I remember well. And for example, here they can have several types in the second splitting level.
Okay.
My example, I have 256, and I can put here in my level 4 clusters, let's say up to 16, for example.
Right.
Right?
That's logical. Yes.
So if I do this, and I will limit the distance here up to, well, maybe not, because 16 is not that much, right? And it's a very dense area. So if I say mandatory, I'm gonna group in groups of 16, and I will put, well, obviously maximum of 2 splitters if I select my splitter of 1 to 8, 2 splitters per node, per cluster.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, this is what I'm doing here. If I were in a rural area, I might limit also the maximum distance up to 150 or something, but this is a dense area, so it's very likely that I fill this cluster very quickly. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
שם גם על 8.
16 פעם ספיטה, בוא נראה מה יוצא.
שני יש 2.
Okay.
Okay.
If I wanted to have, let's say, 4 spare connections at the second splitter level, then I would put minimum 1, maximum 12, maximum 16, but target 12 for the planning.
Yeah. If you target 12, it will try to group as many clusters as possible with 12 premises. Yeah.
No, but, okay, so it's not fair. How do I define spare? Let's say
Spare.
Yeah.
Okay. You can define them here. So for example, for level 3, you can define a spare for splitters, but also define the percentage of
spare fiber.
Spare fibers. So for example, upstream used fibers, downstream used fibers. So for example, if you have in this node, right, in a FDT, and you serve 8 houses, and you put a 25 spare fibers percentage, you will have 2 fibers, two spare fibers, because it's 25%.
Okay.
Right. So you can define downstream used, and spare fibers. Sometimes you want to have spare from the spare fibers, but that will be over dimensioning. You can have aggregated. So this is when you have points. For example, you can define here, if it's aggregated, based on the number of apartments per point, and endpoint by endpoint is based on the number of points per, in the design. So for example, if you have one building and you define endpoint by endpoint, that is only one spare fiber. But if you have 8 apartments, you can, and you want to define per the number of apartments, you would select aggregated.
Okay.
Right.
And upstream used fibers, what does it mean?
The fibers, once you imagine, okay, you have all the endpoints that are reaching a node. So based on the upstream fibers that are from level 3 to level 4 to level 3 to level 2, all the fibers that are along the way in the upstream, based on that number of used fibers, you define the number of spare fibers that you want for your node, right? So let's say that you have a percentage, you have I don't know, 24 fibers, used fibers for reaching this node. In this node, you will place a percentage of those used fibers, upstream fibers, right?
Okay.
To reach this node. For example, you have 24 I don't know, 10 fibers that reach this node, and you want to have spare fibers, but based on the number of fibers that reach the node, you can add them using this option. It's not downstream, but upstream. Downstream is based on the number of nodes or endpoints that are here. Could be not level 5, 6, 7, whatever, plus the endpoints. And upstream is here.
Okay.
So you might want to calculate your spare fibers based on the number of used fibers that are upstream.
Yes, we usually calculate the upstream ones, and we want 100% redundancy in level 4.
Okay.
Not redundancy.
Spare.
Not redundancy. Okay.
Okay.
I understand. We can play with that, and we will need to understand this a little bit further.
Yeah.
But this is when we start playing with the configuration. Let's move on. When do you take your lunch?
I don't have, well, for today, I don't have a fixed time. So it's up to you.
Okay. Do you want to take lunch now?
Okay.
Good.
And you as well.
Yeah, sure. Tell me, how long do you need for your lunch?
Maybe half an hour.
Done deal.
So
Done. Off to lunch. We reconvene it in half an hour.
half an hour, is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So that would be 2:30 p.m. your time, right?
Correct.
Okay. Good.
Merci beaucoup.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
So good. So, well, bon appetit.
Bon
And
appetit.
half an hour. Okay.
Thanks.